welcome to Care Smarts 360 on air, a home care podcast. I am Dennis Gill, Senior Sales Consultant at Care Smarts. So today we are honored to host James Lezzer, Vice President of Interoperability at IntellaTriage, the nation's go-to nurse-based triage provider delivering just one second, delivering seamless care 24/7, 365 days a year. With the largest network of licensed nurses on deck, IntellaTriage not only eases field burnout, but supercharges patient outcomes through cutting-edge tech and custom workflows. So Jim is our resident relationship alchemist. Ask him his superpower, and he'll tell you it's forging trust faster than you can say API integration. His knack for tackling thorny challenges, getting his hands delightfully dirty in mental calculus, and navigating rocky waters makes him the perfect guide to today's topic, that how to build a collaborative tech ecosystem for hospice care. We'll unpack the nuts and bolts of interoperability, discover how to weave together EMRs, telehealth platforms, and triage systems, and hear real world stories of hospice teams thriving through teamwork and tech. Jim believes improving both nurse satisfaction and patient experience isn't just possible, it's imperative. So let's dive in, learn how to connect the dots for compassionate, tech powered hospice care. Jim, welcome on board.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
We are really thankful you took out the time for our listeners today for this very important session that we have. So, not wasting much of the time, just straight away jump on to our first question that we have for you today. Jim, how do you define a collaborative tech ecosystem in the context of hospice care, and what core components must it include?
So I think for a lot of people, that's a challenge that everybody is really trying to solve for in the hospice care industry. You know, fundamentally, what you have at the core of every organization is going to need a good EMR that's going to capture the patient documentation, the clinical documentation. It's got all of the care coordination plans,
Mhm.
everything that you need to care for patients and deliver the best outcome that you can for them and for their caregivers. When you look at the other core competencies and things that need to wrap around that, the technology needs to be both very, very easy to use and from a caregiver facing component, as
Mhm.
well as have the ability to flip to be patient facing or, the external caregivers, the patients that you're caring for. And I think that there's a lot of different tech that's out there. So you'll look at things like the EMR as the core, but then you
Mhm.
start to see patient communication tools, patient engagement tools, breaking those barriers down so it makes it easier for patients to communicate with their caregivers when they're in that moment that they
Uh-huh.
need that care, and
Uh-huh.
then have that data and all those interactions flow right back to the EMR. So you have one book of record for all knowledge that's being captured about that patient and all encounters that are occurring.
Oh, okay, perfect. Good to know about that. And how do you see emerging technologies, including AI specifically, reshaping hospice care in terms of patient outcomes and operational efficiencies?
Sure. AI was a huge buzzword towards the end of last year. And I think
Hmm.
it's even more of a buzzword now. I think there's a lot of different opportunity in the market. You're
Yeah.
seeing everything from ambient technology that's listening to those encounters and transcribing them and getting those things documented, to tools that are actually able to look at the patient record and the codes that have been put together for billing to make sure that that all reconciles and makes sense. I think what we're going to see over the course of the next few years when it comes to AI is kind of a settling down of things to where
Hmm.
people say, I use these tools for the ambient component. These are helpful in documenting what's going on or capturing the post encounter notes and description of what happened for the nurse, making that easier for them and for the
Hmm.
other caregivers. I think you're also going to see a lot of effort on the revenue cycle side, where there'll be somewhat of a consolidation of the players that are in the market there, where
Yep.
people are doing a great job from looking at referral to care plan to billing and making sure that all that maps together correctly. And that if there are any gaps, they can be reviewed and addressed prior to submission of any claims or things like that. Some of the other areas that AI is really interesting is when you start looking at the patient engagement components. I think there's some plays there. The hard part for hospice with AI is that AI still feels a little bit artificial when you
Uh-huh.
have things like robots calling or
Yeah.
reaching out. There's just a latency that humans can't deliver that you don't get from AI just
Yep.
yet. And I think the other component is that's really hard to teach and very hard for a large language model to learn is the concept of empathy and being very present in that conversation, especially when you're having tough conversations around things like changes of condition for the patient, especially on hospice care at the end stages. Um, it's a sensitive conversation that a live person does just differently and does candidly better
Yeah,
than
definitely.
AI can do today. I think you're going to see that become better and better over time, though.
But yes, definitely that thing empathy would be missing. But yes, we can imagine that thing might be added more in the AI side. Okay, so and how can tech innovations be seamlessly integrated with traditional hospice practices without compromising the compassionate care model, according to you?
So, excuse me, the barrier still is largely there of getting data from point A to point B.
Hmm.
And the amount of data that needs to be moved between different tech platforms is really challenging. What you'll see is everybody can do ADT feeds. That's
Yep.
easy. And some of the other things are pretty easy. But when you look at now getting the more holistic picture of what's going on with this patient, where did they come from? How did they get here? What do I need to know and analyze in order to be able to provide the best outcome with my technology and what my technology is doing?
Hmm.
I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers or challenges that we have today. I think that's going to break down over time as you
Yep.
look at solutions like No2 and Health Gorilla and other connectors that are helping to kind of bridge some of those gaps.
Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. And with all evolving regulations, what are the unique compliance challenges for hospice care providers, specifically in Tennessee, and how can they effectively navigate these hurdles
So, I mean, we're IntellaTriage is a national company, so we see this across the country as well as
across the country?
in the
Okay.
state.
Yep.
But there are a lot of ongoing regulatory changes that are challenging, and just all the things that you have to do to care for hospice patients. Things like um, where nurses can provide care, whether you can provide remote services or not in that
Hmm.
state. There are a bunch of difficult things to navigate that one state may require that nurses can provide remote services, but another one may say no, they can't. And I think until we get to some kind of national standardization of those regulatory changes, that's really going to continue to be a challenge for agencies to figure out what can I leverage and what can I do
Hmm.
versus what do I have to do in house that may be cost prohibitive or may be really challenging for me from a market perspective that my cost to care per patients is very different than somebody in an adjacent state. Um, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people are facing.
Okay, okay. So, and lastly, what current tech trends do you predict will significantly impact hospice care by 2025?
So I think what you're going to continue to see is a growth and development of AI. I think you're also going to see more interconnectivity, interoperability between platforms that a lot of the barriers are coming down. People recognize that records need to move from A to B.
Hmm.
So if I'm transferring a patient or discharging a patient from the acute care setting in a hospital and now moving them onto hospice, that whole record needs to shift, and it doesn't make sense to fax that record. It makes more sense for that to be transferred automatically, so that it can be easier for them to take that patient in, get them admitted to care, and get them under care. That's going to drive a better outcome. And having people involved in risk-based contracting and the growth of risk-based contracting kind of is forcing that to happen. I think the other big tech trend that you're going to see is AI. It's still a
Yeah.
little bit Wild West out there.
Yeah.
We don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know that you're going to know what it's going to look like a month from now, let alone 2-3 years from now. But you're going to
Definitely. Yeah.
continue to see players and stakeholders evolving their tech as well as their offering and what other solutions they can do. Those organizations are all aggressively pivoting to find the right business model that fits what people need. So I think you're going to see tons of different solutions come out from that standpoint in the hospice care industry.
Yeah, and AI definitely, I think that's in every industry that no one has, I would say, a very clear picture about that, what would come up, and we can't be even prepared for that. So yeah, let's hoping for the best and what comes out to be a positive thing for the humans and everything. And yeah, jobs remain the safe. That's the one
Yep.
thing. Okay, okay. So thank you, James. Thank you for sharing your expertise today. And it was lovely talking to you. And I hope our listeners did benefit from our discussion today. And to our lovely audience, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Dennis Gale signing off. Take care, guys.